Begin with the prophet Job, the prophet Job. Natan, Malakah, Shem Adonai Borach. God has given us precious gift, priceless gift. On a spring day, not much shy of a century ago, on the other side of this country, God took a piece of God's self, a piece of the purest of light, a breath, Neshama. God breathed it into the clay of the earth. For 9.5 decades, those two pieces lived together. Lived in the brightest of colors, in the deepest of loves, connected to family, community, tradition, with great joy. Was blessed to fall in love. Was confident you'll hear more. Was blessed to share a long lifetime with the ones you love. Together they were blessed to bring new life into this world. Blessed to know the joy of being a grandma, and not only a wonderful grandma, but a great. Truly touched and blessed everybody who met her. And now tragically for us, time has come for those two pieces to separate. May God's name be blessed. We gather together today to take care of those two pieces that we only know together, that we only know of Beverly. For her neshama, for her soul, for her sparkle. Truly radiant sparkle. We'll share words of the tradition, ultimately words of praise and words of prayer. Her soul should speedily return back to the world from which it came. And having accomplished that, then later, we'll gather back together to lovingly return her body, the container for that soul, back to the earth from which it came. We begin with words of tradition. Place to begin is obvious. We have in our sacred tradition a book of wisdom, 31 chapters of what you need to know to live a righteous life, to be good, to be godly. The second half of the 31st chapter, the end, the climax of the book of wisdom of the Bible, the book of Proverbs, is written in praise of the Eshet Chayil, the warrior woman. And other than the fact that it doesn't say smile or laugh or button, read for Beverly. The praise that comes as the highest of wisdom in this world. The praise of the warrior woman who wakes up while it's still dark and makes sure that everything is taken care of. Whose husband never knows want. Whose children are fed and dressed and educated. Proverbs says about such a woman that her hand is opened and extended to all who are in need. The reward, Mishlei says, Proverbs says, for such a woman, that her husband and her children will never lack, that her name will always be praised anytime it is mentioned. There's only one detail that the book of Proverbs gets wrong. It says that charm is false and beauty is fleeting. Beverly's charm was never false. I didn't know her when she was younger. Her beauty was not fleeting. It says in Proverbs that her mouth is opened in wisdom. And the Torah of love is always upon her lips. Yeshachayim mi'imsa v'rachok mipnei mihra b'tach ba'lev b'lav v'shalal lo yechsar kamalatu tov v'lo ra kol yemei chayeha kapa porsa le'oni v'yadeha shilcha le'evyon עוז והדר לבושה ותצחק ליום אחרון פיה פותחה בחוכמה ותורת חסד על לשונה סופיה הלאות ביתה ולחם עצלות לא תאכל כמובן נחה ויעשרוך בעלה והללה רבות בנות עשו חייר ואת עלית על כולנה שקר החן בהבל היופי אישה יראת עלמה היא תתהלל נולה מפרי ידיך ויהללוך בשערים מעשיך. Share as well a piece of the 34th Psalm. The last part of it. The last part of it on most Saturday mornings, most Shabbatot for the last 14 years before this summer. And Mom was sitting there as we sang these words in shul. The psalmist says, "Gather my children, and listen to me." Mom, I'm sure never had to say twice. She says, "Come, gather my children and listen to me, and I will teach you. I will teach you what it is to live life righteously. Who is the person who truly desires life? Let them love every moment, every day, in order to see good things. Let them guard their tongue from speaking evil, their lips from deceit. Turn from bad and do good. Desire peace and pursue it. Chuvanim shimuli yirat Adonai alametchem mi'haish chofetz chayim ohev yamim liroto yitzur lishon chamera usfatecha midaber mirma tzur mera v'aseto b'kei shalom v'rodfehu. Finally, we share as well the words of the 23rd Psalm. You have the words of the Psalm written on the front of the pamphlet that you were handed this afternoon. It's a psalm that we so associate with days of great sadness. And we often recite the psalm without reading the psalm. It's not a psalm about loss, certainly not about death. In fact, the psalm paints a picture of the world that Beverly lived in, of the world of great joy, a world that was abundant in things that are good, like a green meadow nourished by a river, a world of feasting, with parties, Shabbat dinner, a world in which every person is anointed like a queen or a king or a priest who deserves to be treated that way. And it's not Pollyannish. It doesn't live in some deluded fairy tale. It acknowledges that sometimes we sit down to feast. There are those who would come before us as enemies. It acknowledges that sometimes we find ourselves in exactly this place, the valley of the shadow of death. The psalmist writes, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid, for even in darkness, this world is filled with life. That there is so much goodness, the cup of blessing overflows. And goodness chases after us in part of our lives." The promise at the end of the psalm, the promise I think very much reflected in Mom's life. That death doesn't win. Life wins. The promise is that something as natural and ultimately unavoidable. The last breath, the final heartbeat, cannot separate us from the ones we love the most. The promise is that we truly love with depth and sincerity. That even beyond this life, they will continue to live with us. We will continue to live with them forever and with no limits. I invite you, if you have the pamphlet, to read along with me in the English of the 23rd Psalm. And then I will share in the traditional Hebrew. 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou hast prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor David, Adonai roido echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni, amenu potina haleni, nafshi yeshover, yamcheni magnin tzedek leman shemo, yam kilech. The gates of Mavet, Lo Iraram, Yata Imadi, Shiftecha, Umishantecha, Ema Yunachamuni, Taroch, Lefanai Shulchan, Megetzorerai, Bishanta, Vashem Eroshi, Kol Sirei Vayam, Ach tov v'chesed yirgefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'beit Adonai le'orech yamim. Having shared words of the tradition, take a few moments, minutes, share words of memory and of praise. We know there's no way to recreate a lifetime in words. We know that a picture's worth 1,000. How many words would it take? 9.5 decades. In fact, we do a disservice when we limit her life to the simple math from her birth in 1923 to today. It's true, the math works, 94.5. But that's only the way that you and I keep time simply. Only the number of calendars that you looked at over those decades. Because she lived in her own shoes for those 94.5 years. But she lived as a daughter. The early days beginning in 1923 in New York. In a loving but complicated family. In a world of great comfort. A father who was one of the premier bookmakers, the gambling scene of New York. She grew up very, very comfortable and loved. But in a world that by default, by necessity, is controlled. She She had a mom who doted upon her but had her challenges as well. Over those 9.5 decades, father died young. The story of meeting, falling in love, and marrying Walter, I think others are going to tell. If not, I'll tell you later. What a life. With the family. It's a remarkable story that somebody who almost every moment that I shared with Beverly was at the corner of Third World. And in good health, which she always was. When she wasn't visiting the people she cared about the most. She was there in the same seat. One time. Every Saturday. I learned just last night. Beverly didn't grow up in a religious family, but at a young age, context of a very loving but stressful life. She discovered one of the great Jewish cathedrals of Manhattan, Temple Emmanuel, as a place of escape. And as a young child with no formal Jewish education, would go to Temple Emmanuel as a place that was quiet, calm, anonymous, and had a real beauty to it. Interesting, after moving to Detroit 20 years later to be married, and then 50 years ago, almost exactly, coming out to San Diego, that her first synagogue was Beth Israel. It's Third and Laurel, exactly. In between, she and Walter started a synagogue. They grew and developed in Detroit. And unfortunately, for many people in this room, decided that Third and Laurel wasn't going to be her home, at least not yet. She spent a lifetime in Beth Israel. Much of that with Rabbi Penner and Tenzin, but always with the synagogue. And on some deep, deep level, a woman who never learned to read Hebrew. The synagogue was truly sanctuary. It was a place of great love and joy, of friends, of connecting. How beautiful that for most of the last 2 decades, to be able to come back to Third and Laurel where the San Diego story started. There are far more stories. I could be remiss if I didn't, for the sake of my children and me, and Jen, say words like button and chocolates and smile. But if I were to stand up here and tell every story that I knew, it would be but the tip of the iceberg compared to a number of you. And if we all came up, told every single story that we knew, I'm confident that we could more than fill another 94 and a half years. We do her a disservice. We who represent one roomful of Beverly admirers, who could span centuries of storytelling, that she lived her 94 and a half. She shared another half a century with beloved Walter. She shared amongst her 4 children upon whom she thought the world another more than 2 centuries. She shared as grandma. I don't even know how to do the math. They tell me that every day as a grandparent is like an eternity of joy and bliss. And for your grandmother who could take joy in the simplest of things, to try and quantify the blessings of being your grandma, beyond math. She lived to be a great grandma in the presence, and please God, in your future. And that's only the first, row and a half. Ignoring daughters-in-law and son-in-law, and ignoring people Some of whom go back to the late 60s. That shared life. And so what we take to be 94 and a half calendar years is millennia of life. And she lived. She lived. They assure me that it's true that she died at the beginning of this week. But she was never died. Share words, memory, and praise, and great love about his mom. We invite up Michael.
Yes, I'm the oldest of the 4 children. But Professor Lori Levinson can tell you something about Jewish and English culture and law about primogeniture. The oldest son is supposed to be the great leader and the strongest, take care of everything. And some of you know that Sarah has perhaps a different view of the procedure's been reversed for my side, though not mine. But this is really dedicated to her grandchildren who already know what I'm going to say. I can't see. Zoe here?
Yes.
Zoe.
Is Josh here?
Yeah.
And is Jonah here?
Yeah.
I see him in the corner. And Hannah, we're expecting something new here. We have a name. There's sex, I don't know. But they're going to be cousins. And Nicholas Moya, Alexander Moya, where are you? There. Can't see that far. Raise your hand, Nicholas, if I can see it. This is for you, Nicholas and Alexander Moya. I'm going to give you a little roadmap of words that Grandad was very interested in. And your parents have already told you all these, so I'm not telling you anything you don't know already. And they're intended as a fancy college word. Professor Levinson take all the dialect, and people can argue back and forth about what some of these words mean. And I'm not intending on presenting anything except to open the dialectic, and hopefully we'll talk a lot about it. But you'll hear a lot about Granddad's generosity. I think Nicholas Moyer, Alexander Moyer, and Josh and Joan and Zoe can tell you that Granny was very, very generous. And that made you feel good, and that's sort of what love is about. But my roadmap is that there's a bunch of steps between generosity and feeling good and love. And I'm just going to list the words, and then I'm going to sit down and leave the rest to some better winded folks, I think, that I'm sure you won't be missing. The words that I have written down in between generosity and love is first honor, and then truth. Not just what you say, but what you omit to say. What you don't say should never be false or misleading. These are things Granddad was very interested in and talked about it in its own way. The next word on my list is inclusion. Everybody is included unless there's some reason not to appropriately included, and it's an appropriate boundary there. And boundaries are very important. You don't have boundaries and people run all over each other. Good bosses make for good neighbors, but nevertheless, inclusion is real important. When do you include? When do you keep things secret? The next word is dignity. What does this mean about saying to somebody else, I hold you in high regard, you have dignity? And we'll talk about this. And the next one is the word attention. Not just a show of attention, but and not an attempt to look like you're better than the next guy, but real attention, like I'm going to give you my time, and I'm going to give you my soul, so that we really communicate. And then the next word is extend. Everybody knows Granddad was always the one that would say, if somebody new walked into a room, extend yourself, take the risk, get up, take the leadership, introduce yourself, make it happen, make it socially happen, extend yourself, take that risk. And then the next one is two phrases, I've got your back, and I'm there for you. They're really the same. I'm covering you for you. I've got your back. And she would always add, and I don't mean just when it's convenient, because everybody can do it when convenient, or at a later date, I might have your back, but today I don't have it. You got somebody's back, they know it, and you know it, and that can be talked about. And the word flexible, and then the word accommodate. Can you be flexible and let things happen that you didn't originally plan to happen if it's a better idea that's presented to you? Or do you get angry when it isn't done the way you planned it, the way you wanted it? Good faith discussion or negotiation has to do with sharing, including everybody, and discussing it together. Then I have the words grit and gumption. I guess Nicholas can tell you from the work he does in Boy Scouts and Alexander, I know, in Cub Scouts, that the tests often require a lot of gumption to get through them. And you got to be able to do it. And then we're getting to some that require balance. And this is something that Granddad was still working on, and it was a work in process. And I was working on it kind of with her, and I don't know who else, but she always found it very difficult to ask anybody to do anything. And I always felt, and I differed with her, that it's very important to ask somebody. I got a lovely email from Lynn Mendelson, I think is here, I don't see her right now, she'll raise her hand, I'll point her out, but she pointed out that asking, and her father, who was her father-in-law, who was a very religious Jew, that was the first step in building a great relationship. Don't be afraid. Don't save the favor. Go ask people for things, and then they'll do something for you. But you can be a taker, it's okay, but be a giver more, give more back, but take it, initiate, take something. And reasonable men differ. In my family, there's a split on that. You see Sarah kind of nodding her head, and I guess she'll have a different view, which she's welcome to present. And did not believe in asking, and I didn't have her move around, but I do. And I think asking and getting is how you get things done. And the word is then you have to confront and resolve differences. And how do you resolve differences when they're really diametrically opposed? And one of the ways that we would talk about together is first you got to try to talk about them together. And then the word equity comes to play. Well, what's the really fair thing? What's the appropriate, what's the right thing to happen? And usually I think you can work that out. And I hope you're listening to this, Alexander, because sometimes when you want to go to SeaWorld and somebody else doesn't at that time, you got to work things out, right? It's just as simple as that. And this comes to boil with, and to fruition with an email that I'm not going to read, but it was very short, from our cousin Ronnie in Michigan a day ago. And he recounted the fact that 40 years ago, when he was a medical student, and he was sent to San Diego for 3 months, that he asked Aunt Beverly and Uncle Walter to put him up for 3 months or 4 months, whatever the semester was. And Jacob once asked for Granny to put him up for a month when he studied here in San Diego too. But he writes an email and says, I will never ever forget that every morning, there wasn't just bagels and lox, but there was cream cheese, there was herring, there was eggs, there was mushrooms, there were potatoes, every single morning. And then it was like being at one of the great Catskill resorts. Dinners were even to imagine. He still can't get over it, but I think there's more than just filling his tummy. It's a very thin anesthesiologist today. I think it filled his soul that somebody did this for him, because it showed, and I close with the words, concern. I think it says, Granddad had concern for him, and the last two words are care. I care for you, Cousin Ron. And the last word then is, I love you.
Thank you, Michael. Invite out Beverly's granddaughter, Hannah. Please come. Sorry.
you all for being here. I'm going to read a poem that I read at my granny's 90th birthday. So she's heard it already. And you have as well. But a lot of the sentiments, can anyone hear me? No? I'll try to project. Is the mic on?
No, it's not really.
So just get in front.
Well, I'll try to speak loud. That'll help. I'm sure you know the reason that we are all here, to honor the woman who smiles from ear to ear. She keeps C's candy in business and never arrives late. She's the Mary Poppins of our time and a granny who's first rate. Beverly's the woman with the buttons of all of her grandkids and great-grandkids, never seen without a fresh manicure or fresh lipstick, heaven forbid. She decorates for every holiday, be it Valentine's Day to Halloween, writes thank you cards, goes to shul, and always has time for a good meal in between. She's the snappiest dresser, monogrammed sweatsuits and Birkenstocks. Her evening wear is always topped with her finest mink or fox. A pair of colored glasses to match with everything. Every item of her outfit matches, down to even the daintiest ring. If you've never had a vacation at the Shea Beverly, it's a 5-star hotel equipped with copious treats, a personalized welcome sign, and relaxing TV. At the crack of dawn, she takes out the trash while her guests are snoozing in bed. Then she sets out the fine china for an unbelievable breakfast spread. One of my greatest pleasures has been being Granny's travel roommate. Even those seasick nights in the Galapagos when she couldn't keep down what she ate. But living with Granny on the ship sure had its amazing perks, like getting the only king-size bed and the only bathroom that works. Being Granny's roommate on vacation at the Alisal is so special and never a bore, but you'd be surprised just how loudly this little old lady can snore. Just as two gals living like bachelorettes on our family vacay. Granny claims she needs her cane to swat all the young men away. Granny was the world's best babysitter. She was our Peter Pan, always thinking up some fun. She came to all our school performances and games, never missed a single one. She mails creamed herring and brisket up to the Bay Area, LA, and all around. Granny loves good food more than anyone, but somehow still manages to never gain a pound. The creator of my mom, uncles, Mike